you mentioned in the podcast, and again, I've already pulled up your site and I'll check out that calculator, but going back to the podcast, I remember you said that you run it through a calculator, and based upon outcomes of what the numbers are telling you, dictates your exit strategy. Can you spend a second on that?
Sure.
Sure.
So on the calculator, what we do is the first thing we look at is cash flow. I look for a minimum of $400 cash flow on a property. Okay. How can you structure that property to get a $400 positive cash flow? And that's where it all comes down to. If you're looking at doing wraps, great. How much cash can you give the seller? Is that cash from private money? Is it your money that you're using? Is there going to be payments off of it? That kind of stuff. So you really got to look at that side of it. Or is it seller financing? You just said you did some deals with 0 down, 0% interest. That's awesome. Not many people know how to structure that stuff or even sell that kind of stuff. But most of my deals that I have on seller financing are, again, zero interest. And it's all in how you present it. But it all comes down to cash flow. Now, I do very conservative numbers when I do my cash flows. So we look at different rents. We usually use Rent-A-Meter. We usually use Zillow. And then there's a couple other places we'll look, but those are our two main ones because most people have access to Zillow. So when you're renting it, we look at the Zillow price. Now, our calculations are based off of the lower of the two. When that happens, I want that $400 at the bottom. But then what happens is when we go to a lease with an option, we'll look at the higher rental rate. And then because it's a lease with an option, you can usually get anywhere from $100 to $250 over the highest rental rate because you're not a landlord. They are actually buying the property, even though nothing goes towards the property on the rents.
Correct.
They have the right to buy it and make it their own. And most people understand that are moving into the program. So now if you have a $400 cash flow down here, I think on the podcast, I said that my average cash flow is about $600 through
that's where it's coming from.
Yeah, because it goes up at the end. So I'm conservative here because I'm going to get over here is what happens. If it does not cash flow, that automatically tells me that I have to pivot and turn it into a novation. And then on the calculator is a true novation calculator that we use in there. And there's some numbers in there that we use as fluff numbers so that our novations, we look at a minimum of a $30,000 profit on every deal. And a lot of those deals jump up to maybe $40,000 at the end because it's built into the calculator that way. If it goes to a wholesale deal, all those numbers that you're working across is you got your seller finance and your wraps, then your novations. All these numbers drop down into another calculator down below, which is your wholesale calculator. And it'll tell you where you need to be to buy on a wholesale basis. But what it also does is it gives you an estimate of what your wholesale flipper is going to make. Because if you're a good wholesaler, you're figuring out how much that flipper is going to make at the end deal. So we have it calculated in with repairs, with the realtor's fees and closing fees. I do not have hard money or private money in there for the flipper because sometimes they use their own money. So that's the only variable I don't have in there. We very seldom ever use that wholesale calculator, but it's there just in case. And so that's how we analyze the entire deal. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And that's what I typically do when somebody brings me a deal is I usually like to do it on meet like this. So I'll just put the calculator up and we just start walking through it.
Right.
So you can see exactly what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
So Dad, just to explain to you kind of what I love about this and this conversation, I'm feeling a lot of chemistry here. And the reason why is because a lot of times when we talk to other people who are working with, sometimes the conversations are at like 50,000 feet. And like John's getting super granular with us here. Like these are the questions that we need answered, like as far as deal evaluation, structure, all that stuff. And that's why I was like, we got to hop on this call because this guy seems super granular. Not only did he explain like, hey, I'm looking for minimum $400 cash flow, but he explained why.
Right.
And so that's, I love that. And I think it's a really good fit to be working together and really start pushing, building our portfolio. Because at the end of the day, John, just a little background, like we've done hundreds of wholesale deals. We've done a bunch of flips. Obviously, we're slowly but surely building a portfolio. but we realize like this is all a means to an end, and the end is that mailbox money that you're talking about. And we've had a goal for the longest time of $20,000 a month cash flow, like net cash flow, to be able to not step away, but to be able to step away, like kind of like you're doing, to where you're still working, but you don't have to.
Yep.
Like we got to show up every single day and like grind our asses off. And that's not something that we want to have to do anymore. And we just think this is a great way to like really progress forward exponentially faster than we are right now.
Yeah. Generally speaking, as soon as I hear someone say, don't make this a grind, I already know that they're not in the business.
I'm in the business.
It's a grind. Okay. It's a grind. So if Craig and I take 4 days to go someplace, we realize that the machine just stopped. Right. So,
Yeah. And I've never really wholesaled. So when I actually went 100% full time in this, I didn't do any wholesaling. I was strictly a buy and hold. I started in 93 doing buy and holds, and that's when I started doing creative. And when I actually opened an office and really wanted to grow it dramatically, I brought a partner in because I didn't know anything about wholesaling. And he was with me for about 2 years, and then we ended up separating. But he brought a lot to the company. But at the same time, he didn't understand the buy and hold side. And it took him about 2 years right before he stepped out to realize that, oh, yeah, you can make a lot of money and you can have a lot of wealth. Yes, your net worth is on paper, but worst case scenario, if you have to sell everything off, yeah, you've got a shitload of money sitting there. The other thing that we do too is every 6 months, I reanalyze my entire portfolio to see if I can do a DSCR loan. Are you familiar with what those are?
Yep.
Okay. So I go through and I analyze my entire portfolio of what I can refinance, get my private money back out, because that's usually what I like to do. So if we're doing cash deals, I have private money guys sitting here ready to invest with me. We turn around, put them in first and second positions, both. Okay. With that, we're paying them anywhere from 8 to 12% interest only. In my notes that I use with them, though, there is a little clause in there that I can turn it into a amortized note. And there's a little clause in there that says how long it will be, because it depends on what the seller finance is going to be. Excuse me. That way, if one of my lease option tenants turns around and exercises the option, I have private money on it. I don't want it just interest only. I have to get the private money going amortized also. So it amortizes out at the same time, so that when I'm paid out, my private money's paid out. So they all know that. But at the same time, I analyze over every 6 months DSCR loan, because loan money is not taxable. Right now I'm doing 13 of them, should put about $300,000 in my pocket when I'm all done with all 13 of them, tax-free. And it changed my cash flow about $4,000 is all per month. So very little for for $300,000 in my pocket. I'd rather have money today than have money tomorrow, because now I can take that 300 and either reinvest it or go buy a house or car or whatever. I'm not flashy, so I'm not doing that kind of stuff. So with that, it's one of those things that there's a lot more to it than most people will ever teach you.